In global defense politics, history rarely announces itself with a bang. More often it moves quietly, behind closed doors, away from cameras, far from headlines. And when it does move, the consequences often take months, sometimes years, to fully reveal themselves. At this year's Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, defense ministers spoke openly about peace, stability, and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Analysts dissected speeches. Media focused on carefully worded statements. But while the world watched what was said publicly, something far more consequential was unfolding privately. Japan confirmed the transfer of 6 Abukuma-class destroyer escorts to the Philippines. This is not just another naval donation. This is not a symbolic gesture. And this is certainly not a routine defense transaction. This move represents a strategic turning point, not just for the Philippine Navy, but for the entire balance of power in the West Philippine Sea and the wider South China Sea. What does this mean for the future of Philippine maritime security? How does this change Japan's role in regional deterrence? And most importantly, what message does this send to China? Welcome to West Pacific Watch. For decades, the Philippine Navy has relied heavily on second-hand platforms. Former U.S. Coast Guard cutters, decommissioned Allied vessels, a fleet built more for presence than power. So at first glance, some might dismiss this announcement as more of the same. That would be a mistake. Japan does not export warships lightly. In fact, Japan has historically imposed some of the strictest arms export controls in the world. For decades after World War II, Tokyo avoided exporting lethal military hardware altogether. Even today, Japan's 3 principles on defense equipment transfer require that any transfer must: 1. Serve Japan's own security interests. 2. Contribute to peace and stability. 3. Be tightly controlled in terms of end use. So when Japan agrees to transfer 6 combat-capable destroyer escorts, something extraordinary is happening. This is not generosity, this is strategy. To understand why this transfer is happening now, we need to look at what has changed in the region. Over the past decade, China has transformed its navy into the largest in the world by hull count. But numbers alone do not explain the urgency. What has alarmed regional powers is how China uses its maritime forces. Aggressive Coast Guard maneuvers, maritime militia swarming tactics, constant gray zone pressure, incremental escalation without open conflict. In the West Philippine Sea, this has translated into water cannon attacks on Filipino resupply missions, dangerous close-range maneuvers, persistent harassment of Philippine vessels, increasing submarine activity. At the same time, Japan has watched similar patterns emerge closer to home. Chinese naval vessels now routinely operate near the Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa, waters surrounding Taiwan. From Tokyo's perspective, the front line of Japanese security has moved south. If the Philippines cannot defend its maritime approaches, Japan's own sea lanes, critical for energy imports and trade, become vulnerable. Helping the Philippines is no longer optional. It is self-defense by proxy. Let's talk about numbers. Japan did not offer 1 ship, not 2, not a token force. It approved the transfer of all 6 Abukuma-class destroyer escorts. This matters because naval power scales exponentially, not linearly. 1 ship shows presence, 3 ships enable patrol rotation. 6 ships create persistent capability. With 6 hulls, the Philippine Navy could maintain continuous ASW patrols, rotate ships for maintenance without losing coverage, deploy task groups rather than single vessels. This changes doctrine. It moves the Philippine Navy from coastal defense toward regional sea control. The Abukuma-class destroyer escorts were designed during the Cold War, but their mission is more relevant today than ever. They were built to hunt submarines, and in modern naval warfare, submarines are among the most dangerous threats imaginable. Chinese submarines, both nuclear-powered and diesel-electric, are increasingly active in Southeast Asian waters. These platforms are difficult to detect, hard to track, and devastating if left unchecked. Each Abukuma-class ship was originally equipped with a 76mm OTO Melara naval gun, ASRO-C launchers for long-range submarine attack, torpedo tubes for close-in engagements, hull-mounted sonar systems, fire control and surface search radar, and a Kodag propulsion system. These ships were never meant to look intimidating. They were meant to kill silently. Now we come to a controversial part of the story. Before transfer, several systems are expected to be removed. Why? Because modern arms transfers are not just about engineering, they are about politics, export controls, and alliance management. Likely removals include Harpoon anti-ship missiles. These are U.S. origin systems. Any re-export requires Washington's approval. Removing them avoids delays and diplomatic complications. Phalanx CIWS, again U.S.-controlled. While extremely valuable, these systems may be withheld initially. Legacy sensors. Some radar and sonar systems are simply outdated and not worth sustaining. Critics ask, what's the point if key weapons are removed? That question misses the bigger picture. Removing systems does not weaken these ships. It liberates them. It allows the Philippines to choose modern sensors instead of inheriting obsolete ones, integrate systems compatible with ASEAN and NATO partners, and customize the ships for Philippine doctrine, not Japanese legacy requirements. This is where the real strategic value lies. Defense analysts believe potential upgrades could include modern Japanese or Korean ASA radar, advanced sonar suites optimized for tropical waters, Western combat management systems, and secure communications fully interoperable with US, Japan, and Australia. These would not be Japanese ships in Philippine service. They would be Philippine warships built on Japanese steel. One of the biggest questions is missile armament. Without harpoons, what replaces them? Several options are being discussed quietly in defense circles. Korean anti-ship missiles, Naval Strike Missile, NSM, by Kongsberg, Raytheon, or potential future Japanese-developed systems. Each option carries political and operational implications. NSM, for example, offers a sea-skimming flight profile, high survivability, and proven performance in modern navies. Integrating such systems would significantly enhance deterrence. There is one major hurdle that cannot be ignored. The Abukuma-class uses a combined diesel and gas CODAG propulsion system. This includes diesel engines for cruising, a gas turbine for high-speed operations, and a Rolls-Royce turbine built under license by Kawasaki. This system is powerful and efficient, but complex. For the Philippine Navy, this means new training programs, new maintenance infrastructure, and new logistics supply chains. Can it be done? Yes, but only if the Philippines commits fully. Half measures will not work. Zoom out. This transfer is not really about hardware. It is about alignment. By transferring these ships, Japan is making a statement. We stand with the Philippines. Not rhetorically, not symbolically, but materially. This is Japan stepping into a security guarantor role in Southeast Asia. And once that door opens, it does not easily close. Defense analysts believe this transfer could be only the beginning. Possible future developments include export of brand new Japanese warships, joint development programs under Horizon 3, a regional defense production network involving Japan, South Korea, the Philippines. If realized, this would fundamentally reshape Southeast Asia's defense industrial base. Now, let's be honest, these ships are more than 30 years old. They are not plug-and-play solutions. To make them effective, the Philippines must invest in sensor replacement, structural life extension, combat system integration, crew training and retention. This will require money, and that brings us to the most unpredictable factor of all. Everything hinges on political will. Will Congress allocate sufficient funding? Will modernization stay on track beyond election cycles? Or will these ships suffer the fate of past acquisitions, underfunded and underutilized? This transfer is a test not just of naval capability, but of national seriousness. Make no mistake, China is watching every move. 6 Japanese-built warships under Philippine control, potentially upgraded with Western systems, represent a new variable in Beijing's calculations. Possible responses include diplomatic protests, increased maritime pressure, expanded naval exercises, more aggressive gray zone tactics. Will this escalate tensions? Possibly. But deterrence is not about avoiding tension. It is about preventing coercion. So we arrive at the question that matters most. Is this transfer a lifeline for the Philippine Navy, or a test of readiness and resolve? Because ships do not create power on their own. Power comes from doctrine, training, integration, political will. 6 ships can change everything or change nothing. The difference lies in what the Philippines does next. When the first Abukuma-class destroyer escort enters Philippine waters, it will not just be another hull. It will be a symbol of alignment, a symbol of responsibility, a symbol of choice. The West Philippine Sea is entering a new chapter, and history will remember whether this moment was seized or squandered. Stay with West Pacific Watch as we continue to break down missile integration options, Japan's evolving defense export policy, the future of Philippine naval power. What do you think? Can the Philippines handle 6 new warships? Should modernization focus on missiles or anti-submarine warfare? Comment below. Like this video if you want a stronger Philippine Navy. There is a deeper implication few headlines mention. 6 destroyer escorts do not just add hulls. They force a change in doctrine. For decades, the Philippine Navy has operated primarily as a constabulary force, a maritime law enforcement supporter, a coastal patrol service. Even with new frigates and corvettes, doctrine has lagged behind hardware. The Abukuma-class changes that. These ships were designed to operate as part of task groups, not as lone patrol vessels. They assume continuous sonar tracking, coordinated ASW barriers, data sharing with air and surface assets, sustained operations far from port. That means the Philippine Navy must rethink fleet deployment concepts, command and control structures, integration with the Philippine Air Force, cooperation with allied ISR platforms. This is not optional. You cannot operate ASW ships with patrol boat doctrine. Why does anti-submarine warfare matter so much? Because submarines don't need to win battles. They only need to exist. A single undetected submarine can deny entire sea lanes, threaten logistics routes, force surface ships to operate defensively. Paralyzed decision-making China understands this. That is why the PLA Navy has invested heavily in UN-class diesel-electric submarines, nuclear-powered attack submarines, long-duration patrols in Southeast Asian waters. Without ASW capability, surface fleets become hostages to the deep. The Abukuma-class gives the Philippines something it has never truly had: the ability to contest the underwater domain. But ships alone cannot win ASW battles. They require air support. That raises another critical issue: integration with maritime patrol aircraft and helicopters. Japan operated the Abukuma-class alongside maritime patrol aircraft, shipborne helicopters, shore-based sonar networks. For the Philippines, this means better coordination with FA-50s and future platforms, potential acquisition of dedicated ASW helicopters, shared data links with allies. Without this, the ships operate blind. With it, they become force multipliers. Ships can be transferred in months. Training takes years. Operating advanced sonar, propulsion systems, and combat management software requires highly skilled operators, experienced maintenance crews, institutional knowledge. This is where many modernization efforts fail, not because of bad equipment, but because of insufficient training investment. Japan knows this, which is why defense insiders suggest this transfer will likely be accompanied by long-term Japanese training programs, embedded advisors, exchange assignments, joint exercises focused on ASW. This is not just ship transfer, it is capability transfer. Modern navies live or die by logistics. 6 ships mean spare parts inventories, maintenance cycles, dry dock availability, fuel and supply chains. If logistics fail, ships become pier-side ornaments. This forces the Philippines to confront hard questions. Are shipyards ready? Are maintenance budgets realistic? Is long-term sustainment planned, not just acquisition? Japan's involvement could help here, but only if Manila commits fully. One of the least visible but most powerful aspects of this transfer is interoperability. Once upgraded, these ships could operate seamlessly with U.S. Navy task groups, Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, Australian naval units, shared data links, shared procedures, shared battlespace awareness. That changes deterrence math. China does not face 6 Philippine ships. It faces the possibility of coalition response. And that uncertainty is powerful. Some ask, why is Japan willing to take this risk? Because Japan understands something fundamental. If the Philippines is coerced today, Japan is pressured tomorrow. This is not altruism, it is strategic foresight. Japan's post-war restraint was built on the assumption of stable regional order, predictable behavior, US security dominance. That world is fading. Japan is adapting, and the Philippines is part of that adaptation. External threats are only half the challenge. internal politics may prove more dangerous. Modernization requires consistent funding, long-term planning, insulation from political cycles. A single budget cut can cripple readiness. A single policy reversal can stall upgrades. This transfer puts pressure on Philippine leadership. Are they willing to sustain this commitment? Or will short-term politics derail long-term security? History will judge this harshly. There is another uncomfortable truth. Doing nothing is also a choice. Without investment, these ships could operate without modern sensors, lack credible missile deterrence, be restricted to symbolic patrols that would be worse than rejection. It would signal indecision, and indecision invites pressure. How does China respond? Beijing now faces a dilemma: escalate pressure and risk, strengthening Philippine alliances, accelerating modernization, justifying further Japanese involvement, or adjust behavior and accept a more capable Philippine Navy, a less permissive operating environment. Neither option is ideal for China. That alone makes this transfer significant. Other Southeast Asian states are watching. Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia. They are asking, if Japan will do this for the Philippines, who's next? Is Japan becoming a security provider, not just an economic one? This transfer could ripple far beyond Manila. Opportunities like this do not last forever. Ships age, politics shift, budgets change. There is a narrow window in which modernization can succeed, doctrine can adapt, alliances can deepen, miss it, and momentum is lost. Let's imagine success. 5 years from now, Abukuma-class ships upgraded with modern sensors, integrated missile systems, installed crews fully trained, regular joint patrols and exercises. In that future, the Philippine Navy is no longer reactive. It is relevant. Now imagine failure. Ships tied to piers, incomplete upgrades, budget shortfalls, undertrained crews. In that future, this historic transfer becomes a cautionary tale, a missed chance, a footnote. The difference between these futures is not technology. It is will. When the first Abukuma-class destroyer escort raises the Philippine flag, the symbolism will be unmistakable. It will say, the Philippines is not alone. Japan is no longer passive. The status quo is shifting. From that moment on, assumptions change. This is not about ships, it is about choices. Japan has made its choice. Now the Philippines must make its own. 6 warships, 1 alliance. A defining moment. The question is no longer whether history is happening. The question is whether it will be used. Stay with West Pacific Watch as we continue to decode defense, power, and strategy in the Indo-Pacific. What do you think? Should the Philippines fully commit to upgrading these ships or focus resources elsewhere? Comment below. Like if you believe maritime security matters. Subscribe for deeper, uncompromising analysis. This is West Pacific Watch. Defense not decoded.